Hey guys, this is Russ with Razor's Edge Combat Elite. Today I want to talk to you about an athlete who not only had a tremendously successful wrestling career, but also is well known throughout wrestling circles because of his intriguing personality. And that athlete's name is Ray Brinzer. Now I know that many of you watching this video are familiar with the name Ray Brinzer, and odds are you've probably heard some of the famous Ray Brinzer stories that have been circulating throughout the wrestling community for years. There have been a ton of articles written about the guy, and the truth of the matter is that if I talked about all of the Brinzer stories that I've heard, this video could last for hours. So for time's sake, I'm going to focus on some of the highlights of his career and try to tie in some of the stories that I've heard along the way. Some of these stories aren't confirmed, so I can't say that they're absolutely true beyond the shadow of a doubt, but most of the stories that I've heard are from relatively reliable sources, and if by chance Ray happens to see this video, perhaps he can confirm or add to any of these stories regarding their authenticity. Ray actually did a podcast recently with Jason Bryan of Flip Wrestling, and it's just really cool to hear Ray talk about some of these stories firsthand. And if you're interested in hearing that podcast, I'm going to go ahead and link it in the description so that you can check it out. But just to name a few of Ray's impressive credentials, and they include that he was a 3-time PIAA state champion. He was also a member of what many consider to be the best high school team of all time under legendary coach Gus DiAugustino at North Allegheny High School in Pennsylvania. In Ray's senior year, North Allegheny had 4 state champions and 1 runner-up, and they set a record for the margin of victory in team points that year. Brinzer also won back-to-back junior national freestyle titles and a junior nationals Greco title as well. In college, he was a multi-time place winner and eventual Big Ten champion for the University of Iowa in 1995, and he was also an NCAA All-American for the University of Iowa as well, placing 3rd in that tournament twice. So let's just start off talking about Ray's famous Gumby Doll. According to Ray, the origins of the doll began way back in the day when Ray would travel to wrestling tournaments with friends on the weekends, and oftentimes Ray would go to tournaments without a coach, and back in the day that was allowed, so he would put his Gumby Doll in the chair, the coach's chair, as his stand-in during his matches. And Ray said that if there was a timeout or when he got a choice in between periods, he would, since he didn't have a coach, he would confide in Gumby for coaching advice. And Ray said that, this obviously turned more than a few heads, and, as word spread about the weird kid with the Gumby Doll in his corner, it kind of fueled his motivation to continue taking Gumby along for the ride. And I even remember seeing Ray on the podium at the PIAAs, and sure enough, there was Gumby standing at his feet getting his picture taken on the medal stand. So another story that comes to mind when talking about Ray's high school career is that one time in a tournament, I believe it could have been the districts or the regionals, but Ray's name was being called on deck to wrestle, and after a few calls over the loudspeaker without any sign of Ray, head coach Gus DiAugustino began to wonder where his top contender was, and so he sent one of his assistants, and I actually believe it was his son, on a mission to find Ray. And it turns out that Ray was found in the lobby of the arena fully immersed in a game of pinball. The coach did his best to lure Ray away from the game, telling him that if he didn't hurry up and get down to the mat, he ran the risk of forfeiting the match, but Brinzer had no interest in abandoning the game, stating that he was on track to beat the high score. Another well-known fact about Brinzer was that he didn't believe in warming up. He believed that he was a martial artist, and he did have experience in judo and other martial arts as well, and he said that if he ever got in a street fight, he wouldn't have time to warm up. So warming up wasn't a priority to Ray. But with all attempts of talking sense into Brinzer falling short, the coach took desperate measures and pulled the plug from the wall, and Brinzer would then snap out of his trance and proceed to the floor and go on to victory. So, legend has it that Brinzer also possesses a genius intellect. I heard that he scored a perfect score on the SATs, and, legend has it that he could also be seen sitting in the rafters at high school wrestling tournaments reading books on Eastern philosophy. So, the guy is just an academic phenom as well. But, I've heard a legend where, Brinzer wrestled the entire PIAA tournament his senior year using only Greco. And, when I heard that, I thought back to the match, and I've even watched it a few times, and I didn't see Brinzer trying any leg attacks in the match. So that's something that seems to be, true as well. So. But Brinzer was one of the most sought-after high school recruits due to his accomplishments, and because he was not only a bigger guy but extremely athletic, there were a lot of schools after him out of high school. So he ended up committing to the storied program at Oklahoma State, but due to the university facing NCAA sanctions, he decided to become a free agent, and I'm pretty sure that nobody was sure where he would end up, but Brinzer decided to travel to Bulgaria to seek out some of the best training in the world. And it was here that I have heard the story that he was living under a bridge for a few months until he could secure enough funds to get back to the United States. And according to Brinzer, upon his return, he enrolled at the University of Iowa. The funny thing is that he didn't do a very good job at communicating this to anyone, and not even legendary coach Dan Gable knew that he was on campus until one day, after not being able to stay away from the wrestling room any longer, Brinzer decided to go in for a workout, and apparently Gable was standing with some other coaches talking when Brinzer came strolling by, much to their surprise, and Brinzer kind of simply greeted them with a hello and kept walking. But Brinzer would be in the Hawkeye lineup heading into the NCAAs that year, and due to his late entry into the Big Ten tournament, he actually went in with an 0-0 record. And because of that, he was paired up with who I believe was the #1 seed of the tournament, and also a former teammate of Brinzer's at North Allegheny by the name of Matt White, who was wrestling for Penn State. So Brinzer went on to gain victory over White, much to his dismay, and move forward in the tournament. And one last story that I'll finish with was told at a camp one year by all-time great Lincoln McElravy, who I believe was Brinzer's roommate at Iowa. But regardless, the story goes that Brinzer had missed the bus for a dual meet, and the team figured that he would miss out on the meet entirely, but when they arrived at their destination, an 18-wheeler came pulling up, and Brinzer jumped out. Apparently, he had hitchhiked on his way to the meet, and McElravy went on to say that Brinzer had also forgotten his underwear and asked McElravy if he could borrow his for the match. And being the great friend that he was, McElravy went into the locker room after his match, since he had wrestled before Brinzer, and gave him his underwear. So essentially, Brinzer wore someone else's dirty underwear to wrestle in, which is kind of a funny story. But Brinzer would go on to coach one of the most well-known and most successful wrestling clubs, along with one of his North Allegheny teammates, the great Ty Moore, which was called the Angry Fish. The Angry Fish are well known throughout wrestling circles, and the list of great wrestlers that they claim as alumni is just phenomenal. Names including Matt Sturniolo, Adam Fry, Jake Herbert, and Jared King, just to name a few. But it's just awesome that Brinzer could go on and give back to the sport that he loves. So these are just a few of the great stories about one of wrestling's greatest personalities, and there are a ton that I haven't had time to talk about, including the time Brinzer broke into a Metallica concert at Carver Hawkeyes Arena, and the time that he was forced to live in his truck for a period of time. But if you have any other amazing Brinzer stories that you'd like to share, feel free to do so in the comment section below. And if you've enjoyed the video and would like to see more, be sure to hit the subscribe button and give it a like, as it helps out the page a lot. So until next time, this is Russ from Razor's Edge Combat Elite. Thanks for watching.